But first, our top story. More than 100 members of Congress are urging the Health and Human Services Department to finalize a pro-life rule which would end a hidden abortion surcharge put into place during the Obama administration. 25 U.S. senators and 103 members of the House of Representatives sent a letter last week to HHS Secretary Alex Azar calling for a, quote, swift finalization of the proposed pro-life rule. The rule, being called the Patient Protection Rule, would direct insurers selling Affordable Care Act or Obamacare insurance plans that cover elective abortion to collect a separate payment from enrollees for that coverage. It is required by law, but during the Obama administration, insurers were allowed to collect these payments together in violation of clear statutory language. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith of Mississippi led the Senate effort on this letter to Secretary Azar. She joins us now from Capitol Hill. Senator, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
How urgent is getting this pro-life patient protection rule finalized, in your opinion? Why send this letter now?
Well, I tell you, it's just very important to me. It's very important to the state of Mississippi that, when you have hidden charges, when you have hidden things in plans like the Obamacare, some of those policies, that the urgency is there to make sure that it is disclosed, that if you're paying for that, for any type of an abortion service, that we know that. And that is the urgency in there, and that's the reason that I wanted to be a lead sponsor on this letter.
Can you explain the significance of the patient protection rule for American consumers? What would this rule mean for them?
Well, this is a rule that needs to be implemented, but it would definitely expose any entity, any clinic, or any policy that covers any part of the abortion process. And right now there's some hidden things in there, and we just want clarity. We want exposure. We want that it's very visible in what you're paying for. So, when it's intended to hide, that's when we have to come in and demand transparency.
I know we might be getting into the weeds and the technicalities of insurance plans, which some might find that overwhelming, but this rule is meant to promote transparency, as you said, regarding taxpayer funding of abortion. But Senator, doesn't the Hyde Amendment prevent the taxpayer funding of abortion in the first place?
That's exactly what the Hyde Amendment is intended to do, that there's not any hard-earned taxpayer dollars that would go toward providing any abortion anywhere in this country. And, we don't want that circumvented in any way. And the president and his administration has come in and they've lived up to their promises. They are trying to fully implement the Hyde Amendment, that there would be no dodging that, there would be no way around that, it would not be circumvented at all, but would stand just as it has intended to and as it's done for many years.
Senator, the letter that you led to HHS Secretary Alex Azar calls for the finalized patient protection rule to, quote, clearly acknowledge the illegality and extent of this executive overreach in the prior regulation. Can you clarify what is meant by that?
Well, it's just exactly what it says, that we want it to be transparent, and if there's any patient funding that is going to these abortion providers, that we would know that, and that the Hyde Amendment would certainly be carried out as it was intended to be. And again, no circumventing that the transparency would be very clear, and that they would have to provide the documentation to let you know exactly what it's being paid for.
And finally, Senator, you also recently wrote an opinion piece for a Mississippi publication, the Clarion Ledger, highlighting the importance of the appropriations process for the pro-life cause. Why is that important for the pro-life movement today in Congress?
Well, everybody's familiar with Planned Parenthood, and the fact that we are funding that at all is just a disgrace to start with. They are the largest provider of abortions in this country, and they come under the disguise of we're doing other things for women's health, but the biggest part of it is abortions. I don't think that they should be funded at all with federal tax dollars. And it's connected to so many other appropriation bills that they put it in there to dilute that it's not clear exactly what it's paying for. But, you know, we should not be paying for that, the abortions there. And it's very important to Mississippians. I'm here to protect all life. And the sanctity of life is just that. I think every fetus has the right to be born. You know, the only difference between you and I is we were allowed to stay in our mother's womb until we fully matured for a birth. And that is why I am here, that every fetus has the right to be born, and that certainly we are letting the laws stand that are currently on the books, but I want to totally defund Planned Parenthood.
Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith of Mississippi, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you.
Joining us in studio for pro-life analysis is Marilyn Musgrave, a former U.S. representative for the state of Colorado, and today the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Susan B. Anthony list. It's great to have you.
Good to be here.
Thanks for being here. Congresswoman, can you break down this proposed rule for us? What would the patient protection rule do exactly?
Well, it would give transparency, which we absolutely need, on whether or not enrollees are subsidizing abortion when they purchase their plans, and it actually would be enforcing the law. Because Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, call for a separate payment if people were purchasing a plan that covered elective abortion. So this is really enforcing the law and giving people much needed transparency so they don't unwittingly subsidize abortion.
But isn't taxpayer-funded abortion already illegal with the Hyde Amendment?
Well, unfortunately, the Hyde Amendment does not apply to Obamacare, which of course is funded by taxpayers. So that's the downside of that. So we need this rule to enforce the law, to give people transparency. And if you'll remember, we were saying at the time, Obamacare was the largest expansion of abortion since Roe v. Wade. What a sobering thought. And you might remember that at the very end, Bart Stupak, Congressman Bart Stupak, and other Democrats that had previously been pro-life caved on this issue, Obamacare that included taxpayer funding of abortion.
So, Congresswoman, is it possible that some of our pro-life viewers, unbeknownst to them, chose a health care plan that does cover abortion on demand? And if so, how do they avoid that?
Yes, it is possible. When we look at the plans that are offered under Obamacare, 24 states allow for coverage for elective abortion. And out of those 24 states, 10 states have like 85% of their plans that cover elective abortion, and 7 states, every plan covers elective abortion. So consumers need to know this, enrollees need to know this, and they can go to a website, Obamacare Abortion. This has been developed by our scholars at Charlotte Lozier Institute and the great folks at the Family Research Council. They're scrutinizing all these plans, and a consumer, a purchaser of the plan, can look at this website. It's interactive, and they can determine whether or not they would be subsidizing abortion. And this new rule under this administration calls for a separate payment, which goes back to the statutory language enforcing the law, saying if you're going to purchase elective abortion in your plan, you have to do a separate payment. So we need to have this done before open enrollment in November so the insurers will comply with the law.
Do you expect that we will see this pro-life rule finalized?
I hope it's finalized. I applaud the action of the Trump administration, Secretary Azar. This is something that needs to be done. The law originally called for separate payments. That's what we're asking for, so people do not unwittingly subsidize abortion.
As you mentioned, Congresswoman, the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, was the largest expansion of taxpayer-funded abortion on demand since Roe v. Wade. What other action would you like to see be done in Congress to change that?
Well, the law has to be changed. It absolutely has to be changed. We're grateful for this action now with this rule. We're hopeful it'll be finalized soon, but we need congressional action to address this. Again, taxpayer funding of abortion in Obamacare.
And finally, in other alarming news this week, the National Education Association announced it voted to take a position in support of, quote, a fundamental right to abortion. Congresswoman, what's your reaction to this?
Incredulity. I can hardly believe it. My husband was a teacher for much of his career life. We have a daughter that's a teacher. Why in the world would a teachers organization promote abortion? I mean, don't they see the students in their classroom? I mean, I don't understand this. But when you look at their political activity, over 90% of their support goes for Democrats. And right now, unfortunately, it's heartbreaking. The Democratic Party has become so extreme on abortion. What terrible timing for the NEA when the people running for president on the Democrat ticket are even for infanticide, late-term abortion, taxpayer funding of abortion, all those things. What a time to side with the pro-abortion lobby. I'm very disappointed in the National Education Association, and quite frankly, I don't understand their logic at all.
Well, I'm grateful we have your insight and analysis to join us to react to this news. Marilyn Musgrave, the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Susan B. Anthony List. Thank you.
It's always good to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you.